There's some healthcare headlines that dominated this past week, with the CDC vaccine panel weighing changes to COVID shots and childhood vaccine schedules. NBC 10 political reporter Matt Pritchard dives into it all with the Massachusetts Health and Human Services Secretary in this week's At Issue Sit Down.
Massachusetts Health and Human Services Secretary Kiame Mihanya, thanks so much for joining us on a Sunday.
It's my pleasure.
So let's talk about the announcement that came this week in regards to COVID vaccines here in the Commonwealth. The governor saying that they want to make sure that vaccines are available for all adults, anyone at high risk for disease exposure, pregnant, immunocompromised, or kids between 6 and 23 months. Why was it important to come out and put these specific groups in that spot?
This was the routine recommendation of the CDC before the most recent changes. And it's really about keeping as many people as possible safe.
What level of worry do you have right now when it comes to the federal government and how they're approaching these COVID boosters?
Their perspective on science is vastly different from the norms and the traditions that we use. So what I worry about is that somehow vaccines have entered the world of the cultural wars. It's now become a political imperative to go against what you perceive the other side as supporting.
For so long, the federal government is where the states have looked to for all of their science and their recommendations, and all of a sudden now, states like Massachusetts are having to go at their own. So, I mean, are we in uncharted territory?
If we're not able to have a singular voice at the federal level who's coordinating all of us, it just means that when something hits us in the future, we'll be much less well prepared and our response will be sluggish and slow. I think within 3 years we'll probably have 3 major groups in terms of vaccine sort of tribes in the U.S. I think you'll have the mostly blue states that will be following a set of recommendations. I think you'll have the mostly red states that will be following another set of recommendations. And then you'll have the 4 or 5 purple states that will have to sort of navigate in between.
What's the risk of not all being on the same page?
People who are at risk are now in the U.S. going to be a much higher risk than they were just 2 years ago.
We're taping this on Thursday, and the CDC vaccines panel is going to be talking about the childhood schedule for vaccines. Going into it, as we sit right here, what are you worried about?
I think I worry that there are certain vaccines that we've considered completely traditional and completely normal that have done an amazing job of protecting us as a society over the last 100 years. And those vaccines are going to be declared either completely out of bounds or out of bounds for certain sections of the population.
I think a member of that board said that the public should only listen to doctors that are willing to have debate over the science and to go into these sort of conversations and not just stick with what we've been doing for decades. Is there any merit to that argument?
Every single conversation I have with a patient is a negotiation. It's a false narrative to have that, oh, in this world, patients never got an opinion, and in this world, we're respecting patient autonomy. I think patient autonomy has always been respected.
Have you lost faith in HHS and these agencies that I'm sure you had a lot of faith in for the entirety of your career?
I'm a big fan of saying that things are not necessarily binary. There are a lot of things that the secretary at the federal level is pushing that I think would be an amazing benefit, right? I think that the overuse of pesticides is something that has really harmed us. I think the use of ultra-processed foods to sort of feed a whole generation of people is something that's incredibly harmful, that probably has played a role in some of the health conditions that we suffer from now. So there are things in that sense I have full faith in our partners at the federal government. But yes, clearly there are other parts, particularly around vaccines, where I feel that we need to go our own way simply because the philosophy that's underlying the federal government's decisions is no longer in line with a philosophy that I can believe in.
Let's pivot and talk about NIH funding cuts. Obviously, research here in Massachusetts is not only a huge part of our economy, but it's impactful for the entire world. Governor Healy has put forward a DRIVE initiative, $400 million to try and shore up some of these areas where funding has been lost. How long, though, can the state keep at this, keep plugging holes in the dam to try and keep everything the status quo?
We will not be able as a state to replace the kind of funding that the federal government used to infuse in our research institutions. The DRIVE initiative, of which I'm fully supportive, is a step to, again, to mitigate the full-blown effect of the cuts. But it's only a small piece. Like $400 million sounds like a lot, but I haven't looked at the full numbers, but it might be as little as 10%, 20% of what the state was getting beforehand in terms of NIH funding. It's not just the act of finding cures or innovating in science and healthcare. It's also that money was really something that tied into a universities in terms of creating a pipeline for the future. And so we'll be okay, sort of, for the next 10, 15 years, but then we won't have that pipeline of brilliant young people who want to change the world and want to change it through research. It will go to China, it'll go to Europe, it'll go to different places, and we risk becoming a research backwater.
I'm sure the federal administration would say, though, there were areas where money was going where it didn't need to be for all the reasons that they feel like it shouldn't have gone there. Is there a conversation to be had about where we're putting the money?
I think there is a conversation to be had, but there's also a certain humility that has to be practiced in the sense that there are a lot of things that, for instance, that were found during NASA's push to try to put people on the moon that later on turned out to have amazing uses for everyday use that for us to have, right? And so we have to be careful when we say, well, this research is clearly ridiculous and stupid, because it's hard to predict what research feeds what other branch, which ends up being an amazing discovery later on.
Secretary Mahania, thanks for the time.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you so much for inviting me to be on the program.